You personally, would you, if you were doing all that and you had all this money and piles of shit, way more than you ever need, meanwhile, you have a million workers underneath you and none of them are living very good, and you had the power to make it so they live better and you didn't, in your view as a Christian,
is that immoral?
Do you think that makes you a good person? Or the best person you can be?
Like I said, I don't believe there's anyone that good. I think we're all wicked in a way. I know I'm saying around this, but let's just say this. Me personally, and I'm not saying...
He's just waiting until he gets that $1 billion.
On my belief,
okay.
And in the belief system of Christianity, you know, if you believe those things, yes, you should help the unfortunate. You should help those who need help if you can. You know what I mean? You guys are mad that I'm...
No, like, I'm just breathing.
but what I'm saying is, I'm not trying to glorify myself, and I don't want any glory for the answers that I'm going to give. Yes, I would try to help these people. I think these people need to be heard.
I know you would do the right thing if you were like that.
It doesn't make me a good person. That's what I want to say.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
So, yes, I think people should help people if they're more fortunate. Absolutely, especially if you're a Christian. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But whether that makes you a good or bad person, I don't...
All right. But I think you and I will agree, if you got $1 trillion and it's because your workers have nothing so that you have it all, that's not the right thing to do. I think we could agree.
We need to talk about it, and we need to...
Damn you. You should be a politician, man. You're so good.
I think
You're so fucking good,
dude. We need to talk about it like we are. But we need to help these people too, and who's to say that he's not, or these other people aren't?
Well, the thing is,
workers own the means of production.
Workers own the means of production. Anyway, no, but
I'm gonna say this right now.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Entitled Millennials podcast. I was sitting here with my friends Connor Washington on the left here and Matt Ocheltree on the right, and we were just sitting around having some coffee this afternoon. Yep. Boy, I look like shit. I just rolled out of bed not long ago, and we were just talking, having some good conversation, so I figured, let's try to sit down and have a conversation and see where it goes. Yep. So, you know, this is one of the reasons why, like, I can't wait till we get it set up to where it's like an actual studio where it's just set up like this, so we can just like sit down right away, make a few quick adjustments, and then like do the show, because it would just be like so much more, because there's something about the process of like setting up and shit where by the end of it you're kind of like, you just are like, all right, like it builds some tension a little bit, so then you come in and then you're like, oh fuck, now what?
It's like you have like a little green room, and you got like snacks, and then you got like a velvet curtain.
Yeah, I want to do that in our basement, like get it all tricked out, like get a neon sign for the show, and like do all this cool stuff. So anyway, guys, what's been going on with you, Connor? You've been working a lot and all that, right?
Yeah, we're working quite a bit right now, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, orders are picking up, believe it or not. So. Yeah.
So what do you do again exactly?
I work for Larson Manufacturing in Lake Mills, Iowa. Build storm doors.
That kind of seems like a weird thing. Like, it doesn't seem to me like
it would be like booming.
Yeah.
As far as like you said, business has been better than it has been in the past.
So right now we're coming out with a newer door and a newer frame, so that's kind of taken off well. But right now, I'm not sure why it's picking up. I'm assuming everybody's home. They want to do home improvement, you know.
Yeah, I think that's
Possibly they're getting these checks from the government.
That's true.
Extra money. So.
And then
should be another one coming, rumored.
And then tax season just happened too. So I think everybody's kind of like,
we're on the higher scale things right now, and I hope it stays like that throughout the rest of the year. But we'll see what happens.
You're talking about doing a lot of overtime and shit.
Yeah, right now. Yeah.
So. Yeah, that's the thing, I think, and actually now that you talk about it, I've heard a lot of other people do home improvement and shit during this. Like my stepdad and my mom have been doing, like, they like painted the whole inside of the house. Yeah. And then I think they're going to be doing the outside of the house and shit too, because one, they got that stimulus check, so that helps. The tax season just came through. Sure. And then also, people aren't spending a lot of money right now because of the quarantine.
They don't have money to spend.
Yeah.
A lot of the times.
Yeah. So, well, no one's going out and spending money. Like, no one's going to the movies. Nobody's going to the bars. No one's going out to eat.
Recreational activities really have just been...
Yeah.
I think it's like a good time to actually do like self-improvement.
Yeah.
Yourself. I mean, one, if you're not working, that sucks.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, what can you do to stay at home and, like, do a self kind of assessment, and, like, what can you do? Like you said, like, my dad's, like, repainting and doing stuff around the house, and, like, he's working part-time as it is, but...
Yeah. Well, because, like, you're not... And then, like, just think about how much money that is, like, a family of, like, say, 4, like, the average-sized family.
Yeah.
Mom, dad, 2 kids. Like, how much money do they spend just going out to eat every month?
Yeah.
Like, several $100s. So you're not doing that, so it's like... Well, fuck.
Yeah.
Might as well use... Okay, we got all this money. We got this Trump check. We got our fucking taxes in. Like, let's work on our house a little bit and shit. You know what I mean?
I wish we owned a house to do that in.
Yeah.
Instead of, like, an apartment, but...
That's the thing, dude. That's the thing, man. Is, like, I wish we owned this house, because this house is, like, really awesome. Like, this living room... Everyone, like, tells me they like this, like...
It has potential, for sure. I feel
Yeah.
like it's... I mean, not...
I like this wood paneling and stuff, but, like, this fucking wallpaper in here
Do you know when
is
this
wallpaper
house
could
was
go.
built? What year?
probably, like, the 40s or 50s, I'd guess.
It's a big house.
It is big house, man.
It's solid. It's like a fortress.
Dude, that's the thing I always talk about is, like, it feels like a castle for, like, a couple of reasons. Like,
Yeah.
because, like, if you're down in the basement, even the way, like, you got to go up, and then you're on this floor,
Yeah,
and then you
up
go,
the stairs.
and
It's
then
like
you
a
go
spiral,
up again. It's like,
so to
yeah,
speak,
like
yeah.
a spiral, like up into a turret and shit.
Yeah.
And then the fact that it's all, like,
Excuse me.
fenced in and, like, cover, and then, like, all the other houses are, like, fenced in but, like, conjoined in the back. It really, and it's just got this huge, like, facade out front, so it just literally feels like a fortress. So what have you guys been doing during the quarantine?
Well,
Oh, I know
haven't
you're-
stopped working. I haven't
Yeah.
stopped working.
Yeah, I know,
So-
He's
but
a city guy. I live in the country, so kind of different
City
aspects
guy,
of life
yeah.
there.
yeah,
What to do and stuff like that.
yeah.
Although he said quarantine and stuff's going on, so there's still probably not that much.
So you
accessible.
live where again though? Is it Lake Mills area?
Well,
Around
it's
there?
Lake Mills area, but it's
Yeah,
actually
like out there.
considered Joyce.
Oh really?
Yeah, which is I still think it's Winnebago County. No, it's Worth County.
Sure.
Sorry. So
Oh yeah.
we're out in the middle of all those big tall windmills, which is actually kind of beautiful.
Is that weird feeling?
No, not at all.
It's got to
I
be.
mean, sort of maybe at first because I've seen it, but I've never really lived in the middle of that.
Yeah.
But dude, I tell you what, there's nothing like it waking up in the fall or the spring, and there's like this mist over the especially in the spring when
Over the fields and
fields
everything.
are just coming up. You know, the plants are. You got this mist, and there's this pink and purple in the sky, and then you
Yeah.
got these huge windmills that slowly disappear.
Yeah, man. That's got to be. And then like,
It's awesome.
and then I guess you can't really hear them.
You can.
You can.
Yeah. You go out on the deck, and I mean, there's
What's it like?
Humming.
Is it
it's
just
more like a humming or like a.
Yeah,
like
man,
that.
that's really surreal. Especially, dude, for those of you who have never been to Iowa, and actually we have one subscriber who's a regular listener to the show. I can't remember where you said you lived. I think your name's Andrew Toohill, but he's been talking about coming and thinking about buying some property out here and shit, and like just been telling him about the area, and he's like traveled through it a few times. And what Connor was just saying, man, that's like a really good perspective on like, dude, Iowa gets a bad rap of being boring because, like, when you drive through it, it's just fucking...
Very flat, very straight roads.
At least it's not Nebraska, though.
Dude, that's the thing. Nebraska's even worse because there's, like...
There's who owns all that land, dude? There's just miles and miles.
I don't know.
Even like eastern Colorado
Yeah.
is like Nebraska-ish, and then you're just like, there's nothing.
Dude, it's literally flat, and, like, some of it doesn't even have crops, man.
No, exactly, yeah.
So there isn't even anything to look at.
Yeah.
It's just desolation
Yeah.
for, like, miles and
I was
miles.
joking.
Yeah.
Sorry for any of you guys who are from Nebraska. I'm just like, can we just nuke it? Like, can we
Yeah.
just like make it? And just, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we could all maybe agree partially on this. I don't know how you guys feel, but growing up, we all grew up together. If you guys
Yeah,
didn't know that, but
Yeah, we've all been friends for 20 years now.
oh yeah, at least
Yeah, pretty much.
Which, for our age, to have friends that have been, like, good friends for 20
it's
years...
a special thing.
Yeah, and it's just been...
Yeah.
Maybe, for those of you who've been with the channel for a long time, you maybe saw episode 14. It was our memorial for our friend Patrick Furley, who passed away,
It's like
a year?
7 months ago,
getting on to a year now, yeah, 7 months ago. And
which is crazy.
we did an episode with all of us, and you guys should go check that out. It's really kind of like, I mean, bare bones and a little bit ghetto, because we had like 10 people in here
Yeah.
with 2 microphones, but it was still a lot of fun, and we kind of reminisced on some of those old memories and stuff.
That's how he would have wanted to, and we were going to his, to the actual funeral, and we all crammed into your car.
Yeah.
Just like the old days.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I got like a hatchback SUV, and everybody just like piled in there, and we had 2 of you guys in the back, and and you know, we were all sad when Pat died, but we like made it into fun. And it was kind of, in a way, it was kind of fucked up because we like rolled up to the funeral like we were having a party.
Yeah.
You know, and I think not you guys, but I think a couple of us were like literally even pre-gaming it. You know what I mean? Like I think you know who I'm talking about. There's a couple of us that were just like.
I mean, I feel like that's how he would have wanted. You know.
Exactly, and then we're all in there and like cracking jokes about him like passing away and stuff, and.
Yep.
Yeah, man. I don't know. The thing about living in Iowa is like, and this is going back to you, Andrew Toohill, in case you're kind of wondering, like, and we've talked in the comments a little bit, like, it really is beautiful. Like, it gets a bad rap of like when you drive through it and everything because it just looks boring. But man, like if you live out in the countryside and you know you go out on your patio and like drink coffee in the morning, or like have a smoke like out on your front yard or whatever in the evening when the sun's coming down. Or like walking in the river valleys, because we have like a lot of rivers that pass through Iowa and stuff. I've been to a few different states. I've been through the South. I've been to Florida.
There's something about it.
Yeah,
it's a good place to grow up and to maybe die. But
yeah,
like
that's
we
what I
talked
was
before.
saying.
Like maybe it's maybe a place to flourish. You know, it's subjective.
Yeah.
But I feel like generally it's I think there's a lot of like hidden beauty in it.
Yeah.
Like for sure. Especially for people who just good, simple living, like you can't Iowa's up there as far as places to live.
Yeah, man. And that's the thing, that's one of the I guess quotes that we've said before many times is like Iowa's a good place to grow up and it's a good place to die. Like when you've gone and you grow up here because it's safe and it's beautiful and there's like lots of places to play and like watering holes to swim in and whatever. And then when you as a young man or a young woman, you go out and you venture out and you build your life, and then and I've heard older people talk about this, like they lived in Minnesota, they lived in New York, they lived in California. And then they reach a certain age and they're like, something in their heart is like, I need to go back to Iowa. Mm-hmm. And like that movie Field of Dreams almost
classic.
Like catches that like what it feels like here. And man, I don't know, like there's just like this secret beauty to it that like maybe you don't
you don't even realize it. You don't even realize that you're like living it until you just like.
It comes to you in a weird moment because, there's places like Colorado and shit where, like...
Well, it kind of hit me sometimes. I'm driving on like Highway 5. I'm going back home, and just like the sunset is just perfectly setting, and I'm like driving into it, and I'm like...
In Iowa?
I'm like, yeah, and I'm just like, man, maybe like I could live here the rest of my life.
Yeah. Yeah, like, obviously there's places like Oregon or Colorado or California that have this, like... really majestic beauty that like just as soon as you lay eyes on the horizon for the first time in those states you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
You don't get that in Iowa.
No, you wouldn't. Not so majestic. It's like
it doesn't strike you, but what it is like I always say, we have a lot of nature trails and we have a pretty good conservation program, although the water quality is an issue. Maybe we can get into that. But it really, you find the moments like when you go hiking in these trails, like in our town, we have this place called Lime Creek. It's a nature conservancy.
It's
and
for
50 years probably, if not more.
Yeah.
And they've added on to it and done other stuff. But the thing that always gets me is when you're walking by a prairie at the right time of day or in the wetlands and little woodlands and glades that we have, and the light's coming just through the trees just right, and everything's vibrantly green, and you're by the water, and the rivers are all very slow, and there's like a mist in the air, kind of like what Connor was talking about, and you just it's like the Shire out of the Lord of the Rings,
Yes.
And you'll just be sitting there. Like one of my favorite things is I go to that Lime Creek conservation place, and I sit there by the river and like smoke a cigarette, and it's just
take it all in.
Yeah, man. It's a quiet place.
Yeah.
Like
when I have those moments, I'm just like, you know what? I really could, like, settle down and actually make this my permanent.
Yeah.
But then a part of me feels like, well, I regret not.
That's the thing,
leaving
man.
Iowa.
Yeah.
nobody knows the answer.
Being a young man or woman or whatever, you like, just being young in general, you just want to like strike out and like have your adventures and see what you can see. And I recommend doing that.
Yeah, because you gotta just try new things. Like, even if you do fail, like, it would probably be worth it.
Yeah.
It's all the new experiences, the people, opportunities.
Yeah, because then what are you gonna do? Like, that's
right.
That's why I do what I do here, and that's why I write. Like, I'm a smart dude and I'm a hardworking dude. I could start up at any company that I've been to, and I could work my ass off, and I could run the store, or I could do this and like level up and shit, right? I could do it and have all the money in the world, but I choose.
But would it be satisfying? It wouldn't be fulfilling.
Exactly.
Like, for me,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't want to do that. Like, I want to try to do the big thing.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's hard, I literally opt out to have like less money, and more financial worries, because I know if I keep doing this, if I keep writing and stuff, I can make it. And even if I don't, it's literally one of those things like, well, at least I fucking tried.
No, right.
You know what I mean? And I don't know. I just think a lot of people get complacent and like they're not, or they're scared.
Dude, I'm sure we're all a little guilty of that, but I mean, especially.
Well, it happens
I
in you.
can see that in myself as well, and
Yeah.
just acknowledging it and trying to see what's on the road.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, you have moments where you just get into your routine and stuff, and it's just so easy and it's comfortable. But really, it's a slow death. Like, what's that saying? Most men lead lives of quiet desperation. And it's like, I just don't want to do that, man. Like, I gotta try. I don't care. And like, that's my message to everybody that watches the show too. It's like, whatever the thing is that you think you really want to do, at least fucking try to do it, man.
Yeah.
You gotta try to do it, because dude, you only get one life.
Yep.
And if you don't fucking do, like, dude, that's my biggest fear in life, dude, is waking up when I'm 40 or 50 and just being like,
what the fuck have I done?
oh shit, this bitch is halfway over.
Yeah.
Now what? It's a trap, dude.
Yeah.
And like, you can't settle in life, man. You can't settle down with, if you're gonna, Connor, what are you doing?
I apologize. I think I took your coffee.
What?
I think I took your coffee.
Oh, well, whatever. You're just like wandering around out there.
Pour these both in here and take that if that's okay.
I don't care, dude.
He's barbarian.
No, it's a dry season, so my nose.
That's all we ever are. We're
Yeah.
just almost.
Yeah, we get like 5 minutes in, and then Connor's like,
I do apologize. Sorry.
We just have our instinctual cravings, and we just want to dive into what we most deeply need, Connor, right?
So you guys might have to fill me in on what we're talking about.
Well, we were kind of talking about, and this is honestly a good segue into some of the things we were talking about that made me want to do this podcast. I thought people might find interesting. Well, we were talking about, like how easy it is to get complacent in life and settle, and you end up with a girl maybe you fucking don't really love, but it's like all you've known. And you end up at a job people don't take risks, and they don't want to try to do something different because it's scary or it's hard.
This taking risk thing is huge. People don't like change.
Exactly, dude.
Yeah. If you don't admit that, I would be very surprised that you're telling the truth. Like.
Yeah. Well, and unfortunately, one of the things is like, dude, sometimes you have to hit like rock bottom or damn near close to it to have these realizations of like, oh fuck.
Right.
Because like, you guys have known like some of the life that I've had, and I reached a point a couple of different times, and it's because of those moments where I was like, all right, I'm not doing this. I tried the whole prefab thing. Like, I was with a girl for a while, and I had a kid with her that I like didn't want to be with actually, but I just did it because I thought that's what I had to do. And I worked at this factory, and no, I'm just doing what everybody told me I should do.
Mm-hmm.
And I was living that life of quiet desperation that we were just talking about. And I just woke up one day and I realized, like, no, I don't care how hard it is to do this. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to try to do this shit. I can't do this. It's scary to leave this chick and like have to pay child support and like be fucked and maybe not see my kid as much, which thank God I've like gotten to a point where I have now.
Yeah.
But I had to do it, and it's like you reach a certain point, and that's kind of want to segue into what we were talking about, Connor, because you were thinking about moving to Missouri recently. Yeah, you've been talking about that for a while.
Yeah, I've been thinking about moving to Missouri for a long time. Like you were saying, I guess I was living off of the basis of fear. You know, like those, like trying to think logically, maybe listening to your parents or whoever it is. Other, you know, you have all these sources of influence in life, and I also think it sort of got into like a conversation of faith as well.
Yeah.
So particularly for me, this is something for me stepping out in faith, you know, and what I believe. And that's a very difficult thing. I've been close to my family for a long time, you know, and they're a big influence in my life. So the last few years I've listened to them, you know, my feelings and my faith, just kind of torn between all three of them, you know.
Yeah.
And I am moving. I honestly can say I'm not scared anymore, you know.
Yeah.
But it's definitely been a journey, you know. And
Yeah.
I think anyone goes through that type of stuff.
Well, yeah, if you definitely feel like something's out there for you, dude, you go and search it and grab it, you know.
Yeah.
It's like we're definitely still young enough to take that risk. Like, I don't care if you're like 40 or like
50,
dude,
60.
Dude, you might, yeah, just like you said, just do it.
Yeah, man. I like even when you went to Colorado for a while, like that was a real bummer for all of us, kind of, because we were worried you were, and it was only like what it was,
Intern.
3 months.
but like,
Dude, I honestly fell in love with like that valley area.
yeah,
Very bougie area, like Aspen. It's a small town.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize that, but yeah, very high profile clientele come through there, and
yeah,
not necessarily Aspen itself, but just the mountains and the windy roads and like and stuff like
The
that.
scenery
It just
and stuff.
yeah.
the whole
Completely
thing is
different.
amazing, dude. And this being a political show, do you want to? And I think maybe you talked about it on episode 14 like a long time ago, but you've had, like you said, some high profile people there. And who was one of them? Bill Clinton,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
Bill Clinton spoke. I think he was at the security forum. So you have like CIA there. You have the director of like FBI, and
Yeah, that's
we
fucking
were
wild.
in one of our buildings. You know, there's lots of different buildings. It was it was like a 4-acre property. But yeah, we were prepping his like green room and his stuff like that, and
So was he giving like a speech to like the intelligence community?
Yep.
Doc,
Yep.
that's some fucking sketchy shit.
Yeah, and then like you have like actors like Kurt Russell and
No way.
Yeah, I didn't serve him, although I saw the back of his the back of his head, and he did one of these. And I was like, oh my god! Like,
Yeah.
I got some of his.
And as you know, we don't like Bill Clinton on this show, but
he wanted. So you get his preferences, and everything has to, very important, right? We don't want to mess up anything.
not for Bill Clinton.
Nope.
The Clintons, if you fuck up an order with the Clintons, you might end up dead in an alley somewhere. So
And yeah, he wanted room temperature salmon.
is that how people eat it? Is that like a normal thing for that to be that way?
I don't think it's that odd.
'Cause-
I mean, it's cooked, and
Sure.
we would have it, in a cooler. Then if you
You
pull it, you would just basically have it. You pull it from the cooler, like
This is more
like
Matt's
an
specialties.
hour.
Yeah,
like,
he knows the shit.
like an hour before
Yeah.
an hour before service, basically.
Oh.
I've had it completely cold, served cold, like cured, so it's basically raw.
Oh, what the fuck?
No,
oh,
it's
I mean, I
delicious.
guess, I eat sushi and shit.
Yeah, in sushi, if people who know, sushi should be around body temperature.
Yeah.
Should
Yeah.
be room temperature to be. When it's cold, I mean, for like food safety and things and like health code, you should have your ingredients, cold, but
Yeah.
ideally, like when it was first, conceived and invented, like it was just
The way
Stuff
Americans
wrapped
eat
in rice.
sushi
Yeah.
compared to the traditional way is completely different.
Oh, yeah.
we always just like fuck everything up.
The fact that you can buy sushi in a goddamn convenience store,
Yeah.
like at a gas station, Like, there's something so incredibly fucked up about the phrase gas station sushi.
Yeah.
I highly recommend, if you have had what Dylan said, the gas station sushi or sushi somewhere that typically don't serve it, like traditionally, and you didn't like it, give it another try, you know, but go to a sit-down restaurant that is a traditional sushi place, and I would say that
go to you know, there's some restaurants in Iowa, at least in like Ankeny, like, you know, in the Des Moines, where they actually get fish flown in like fresh from the airport
every other day.
Like that,
every
like
day.
That's like the places you want to go. Like, don't go to like your grocery stores. I mean, it's okay at like 3 a.m. and you're craving it.
Yeah, you've had a few drinks and you're like, I'm gonna get that fucking sushi. Yeah, with that wasabi and that fucking pickled ginger on it. You don't like that?
Maybe like the tiniest amount wrapped in
a giant
sushi roll. But
I love
you got to mix it in with
that's
soy
what you're
sauce.
supposed. Oh, really?
That's what it's really like meant for.
I didn't know that. I thought you just like put a dollop on there.
I mean, you could, but I mean,
I love that burn. I love it, dude. I love it. It's like you're like breathing fire and shit.
Yeah.
But Connor, I wanted to go back. If you want to talk about it, man. Anyway, you were talking a little bit about like where this like inspiration to come to Missouri, like to go to Missouri, like came from. Like you said, you were in Utah. If you want to talk about it anyway, I just thought that was really kind of a mind fuck, to be honest. And like I'm not really a spiritual guy.
Yeah.
But I am open to like.
Yeah.
When shit's spooky, I'm like, you know what I mean? So I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit, or
yeah, we can talk about it. I'm okay with that.
Sure.
What Dylan's referring to is we were talking about my move to Missouri and why, and I'm actually surprised I haven't told you guys till, I guess, today.
You had talked about it for a while, and I knew that it like had like, you know, because you are a Christian, right? And I knew it had probably something to do with that. But I had no idea the context or anything, and it's just kind of a spooky story. So
it was 2016, January, February. I can't remember when. I think it was more February. I started working for Larson Manufacturing, and I would travel as like a sales rep. Not as a sales rep, but I was helping them.
Kind of learning the ropes of how to do the whole sales part of stuff? Or
well,
what?
Every so often, like every... I think 7 to 8 years, they have these new doors that come in, and there's displays. If you ever go to a Lowe's, Home Depot, or like your local lawn care place, like maybe Ace Hardware or something, like a bigger store.
And they'll have like a setup.
A few doors, yeah. Those are the displays. We went in there, tore them down, took the top ones down, put all these new displays in there. It was beautiful.
Yeah. A man who takes pride in his work.
It was actually beautiful. And,
None better.
Anyways, I loved it. Had a good experience. Did that for a little more than 5 months. And one of my very, very dear friends that I actually met in Mason City, he came to Mason City for a year.
Mm-hmm.
Has some things going on. His mother lives here and his grandparents do, over by Rockford, Iowa. And I met him, and he's also a Christian, a believer. And I grew up Catholic, so I grew up in a very religious home. Not necessarily my parents, but like our grandparents and stuff. It's just been in our family. Sort of like a religious tradition thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys understand that.
Yeah. With that, did you feel like because there was this institutionalized version of it and this tradition of it, did you feel like, and this isn't to downplay anybody in your family's like spirituality, but did you feel like because of the tradition, because of the strict institutionalization of it, did you feel like there was a certain level of spirituality that was missing for it, at least for you? Because, you know, when we were growing up, man, you know, you and I used to run around and do wild shit, and one of the things I always really appreciated about you as a friend is you had this like really open mind, and you were always wondering about stuff and learn about new religions and just having crazy thoughts and metaphysical stuff, and we just, you know.
I can touch on that a little bit if you'd like.
Yeah, because that's kind of what I'm curious about. Like, did that lifestyle of growing up with like this institution
influence that?
Did it just leave you hungering for something more at all?
I'll
Not to interrupt your story, but
on different basis.
Okay, sure.
Because I don't know how much time we have here, but we'll just let it run on. So yeah, I grew up in a Catholic family. Wasn't extremely religious, but further generations, I would say, were a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say extremely strict. My family's amazing. They're beautiful people. I love them.
Yeah, they're awesome people. They didn't like me very well because I was a degenerate, but so I don't blame them.
Well, anyways, growing up, we would go to church every Sunday, and then it slowly faded out to just going on holidays such as Easter and Christmas, things such as that. And then we went to Newman Catholic and took on Wednesdays religious classes.
Yeah,
I was there with like Robbie Ermer.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's really all I remember who was there.
I never knew he did anything like that. He's one guy I want to have on here sometime soon because he's got some stories for you guys.
And what Dylan was saying about maybe the influence of this type of religion or the lack of spirituality, I was so young I didn't really understand that. And I have nothing negative necessarily to say about the Catholic faith, or if you are Catholic, that is totally okay based off of your understanding of Scripture, in my opinion, though. So I have other opinions about other denominations, which that could be maybe another podcast.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a relationship with Jesus. I didn't even really understand who Jesus was.
Or God, even, really.
Or God. I thought God was this deity. I didn't really understand what omniscient meant. So I didn't understand that part. But there was just this higher power of a God that I don't know what he looks like. I don't know his attributes or nothing about him that I thought. But I would just try to do my best in life and live to a certain code, so to speak. And that was kind of it. There was no relation.
What is it? Try not to be a douchebag, right? I mean, pretty much in life.
There was no relation.
Yeah.
And that's how I grew up, and that was my experience with that.
And I think that's probably where a lot of that, like when I first got to know you better in middle school and high school, I think that's where that not lack of relationship, I think that's where a lot of your questioning nature, because you were always looking for answers. I don't know if you remember that, Matt, but he just was always like reading like Eckhart Tolle or metaphysical books or like trying to learn something, and it wasn't always necessarily in the Christian faith, but you were looking for answers all the time, even if you didn't know you were.
This is the thing, and I will say this about this, is yes, I was looking for answers. I think a child that is growing up, whatever happened in their life, depending on what has happened in their life, physically through their life, whether it was good or bad, mentally, emotionally, whatever had happened, that sort of forms what you search for or how you act further on in your life. That's a whole nother conversation as well.
That's Pavlovian, yeah.
But as a child, maybe from middle school and further on, Dylan was talking about me searching for these things. I'm not the only one who's done that, in my opinion. I believe in Scripture, and Scripture talks about how all creation is groaning in searching for these things.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that is true about humanity. They're searching for these things. I mean, you can look at all these different religions.
Yeah.
Once again, that's another topic.
Yeah.
People are searching for something higher and so they can have maybe a purpose or a meaning or understanding to life.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it, maybe in other religions and however other people look at it, it could be a psychological thing. You know, we're just trying to understand something we can't understand.
Yeah.
But to me, there's truth out there.
Yeah. Yeah, human beings are literally genetically wired to search for particularly a spiritual purpose. And I don't know what I was reading recently, and this is a little off tangent here, but I just saw this like meme or this quote or something where, I think it was from Marianne Williamson, actually, who was running for president, and I thought this was an interesting thing that she said. What you're talking about of people searching for answers, humans have this predisposition genetically, psychologically, to search for answers, right? Spiritual answers. We need spiritual fulfillment.
I will go to as far as maybe just adding something quick.
Sure.
To cut you off.
Sure.
You say genetically
Yeah.
and psychologically or physically?
Whatever, yeah.
I would go to the extent is if you believe in spirituality, whatever form that may be, it would be a spiritual aspect rather than a physical.
Yeah. Well, and what I'm
saying. So the searching of this is very unique and different from the human and the animal.
Sure, right. Yeah, but just, even if we're going to be bare bones for people that listen to the show and they don't believe in spirituality and stuff, like the science is there that human beings need some kind of spiritual or ritual, whatever it is, element in their lives, because that's how we've been, sat around the fire and told stories of deities and danced and got into trances and stuff. And well, this Marianne Williamson, I thought this was really interesting because she said, children and young people need to have a legitimate and like truthful and genuine spiritual upbringing, and that can take any form. It can be institutionalized, it cannot be institutionalized, it can be new age with crystals and herbs, or just letting yourself think freely in a spiritual way. But they need to have genuine conversation and guidance spiritually, be it from a priest, a father, even an atheist who takes a perspective of like, we're all the dust of stars and we're all interconnected to the universe, and you are the universe, and the universe is you. Like, even that is a spiritual thing in a way, right? And what she talks about is the fact that without a genuine spiritual path and upbringing, people will turn to a false spiritual path or a false spiritual guidance. And what she's trying to say is that can take a lot of forms. It can take religious fundamentalism that makes you hate other people because people are not actually in faith. They're using faith as a tool, a weapon for their own power and gain. But it can also take a political sphere, because if you don't have that guidance or that pillar of spirituality and questioning and emotional and spiritual yearning, you'll turn to other things like politics, and you'll become a diehard communist or a diehard fascist or a diehard Republican. And what she was trying to say is that that's maybe a lot of the issue
of religion.
Exactly. It fills that void, although possibly not very well, right?
So on the basis of that, in my
Sorry
opinion,
for the tangent there.
No, it's okay. In my opinion, and this is just my subjective opinion on what I believe and what truth is.
Yeah.
If there is that ultimate truth, things I believe can have aspects of truth, but maybe have other things that aren't truthful in it. You know what I mean?
Almost like you're
To a
getting
degree
close,
of
but you're
truth,
not quite
yeah.
there.
And this is just me speaking on my own opinion. Where do we get our morals? Where do we get our truths? How do we understand those things? Everybody looks at these things differently, right?
Yeah.
How can we say as humans that this is truth or this is not truth? That's a whole nother argument there.
That's that deep dive that could go on for
Yeah,
hours.
because you were saying the human needs to fulfill the spiritual craving, so to speak.
Yeah.
I agree with that, but what is truth? These are the questions we need to be asking and searching for.
What is a true spiritual path,
Because,
right?
like you said, what was her name that you were?
Marianne Williamson. She ran for president recently.
She was
I don't
talking
know if you
about
remember.
there could be bad forms of spirituality, in her opinion.
Trying to fill a void spiritually, but you're not actually getting what you need.
Everybody's going to have a different basis of what is bad and good spiritually, and what is truth and what is false, you know? And these are other questions that I think, especially as all of us right now during the time in this world that we're going through as humans, should have a dialect or a conversation peacefully about this. It's things that need to be answered, and like you were saying, unfortunately, each group, whether it's religious or political, have individuals that make these other groups have a bad rap or a bad name for them. And that's unfortunate.
Fundamentalists, people that it's people that take a spiritual path or institution and weaponize it for their own personal gain. So
it's unfortunate for that, I think.
But getting back on with your story, I know we kind of took a tangent, but but I thought that was pretty awesome. So you're out here, you're doing sales rep stuff, building displays and stuff for this company, and you ended up in Utah, right?
Utah was about the second or third place I went. And by the way, if you've never gone to Utah, I was in Salt Lake City. It is beautiful. It was the first time I seen mountains. They have this place called...
That's the first time you saw mountains?
Yeah.
Wow.
There's the first place I saw mountains, and it has an island. It's sort of like an island. I think it was. It's called Antelope Island, I believe. And they got wild buffalo, wild coyote or wolves. I'm not sure.
Probably coyotes are everywhere,
it was
too.
a great experience, and I recommend it highly. Anyways, I was there doing work. I was struggling with life and the spiritual aspects that I've been searching and what I believed. off of the basis of my understanding of these things and what I was going through emotionally and psychologically and just in life.
And you talked about some inner pushing and pulling and tugging of dealing with, as you call it, sin, but just like temptations and vices and things like that as well.
What I was dealing with, what Scripture sort of talks about and touches on is your spirit battling and fighting with your flesh and the world. You know what I mean? There's these spiritual aspects of things in life that we're seeking, that we believe are truth, and then there's these things in the world that tug and pull, you know what I mean, at that. So it's sort of like a battle against spirit and flesh. And if you want to, you could read more about it in books such as Romans in the New Testament. Paul touches on that, and other books on that.
And I think that that battle between the self and the body, literally, right, is like you don't even need to be, theologic. Like you don't need to be any like every human being understands that
to a degree. Yeah,
you know what I mean. And like maybe there's more insight that can be found in scriptures, but
just a quick add to that is like in scripture and stuff. I mean, every human being, I believe that truth to be God, in my opinion. Jesus Christ. Yeah. I believe what Scripture says is that these moralistic truths are written in the human heart. So we understand these things. We see these truths in nature and in creation, but we reject them and worship them as creation rather than the creator. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then these things are...
You take a materialistic perspective instead of maybe looking through the... reading between the lines, so to speak.
Yeah. And so all of us have this understanding of what's right and wrong within us, in my opinion, but then whatever we believe can form or shape which direction that goes. And so I kind of lost track there what we were talking about before that, but... Yeah,
you're working with the company, and you're in Utah, Salt Lake City.
We're in Utah, Salt Lake City, and my friend Joel that I met, he was in Mason City for a year, I think, his senior year or something like that.
Yeah.
And then he went back home to St. Louis, Missouri, also a beautiful place.
Yeah, it is.
And he really, I believe, the position of his life and where he was at and mine, I don't believe in these coincidences. I believe God brought that to fruition and made that happen.
Yeah. You're meeting him and stuff.
I didn't understand that really then, but whatever you go through in life, I think you can have a greater understanding further on of possibly why this happened. Yeah. That's my understanding of that. And he's still a dear friend to this day, lives in Colorado, loves it there. Beautiful family, just got married a few years ago.
That's nice.
Yeah. And anyways, 2 weeks before I go to Utah, he's like, calls me up, I'm struggling with life, battle between spirit and flesh, my understanding of wanting to live in the world but then live in Christ, which is a continual battle. I struggle with that still. I'm not perfect, and I'll say this humbly. I have struggles, we all do. And like I was talking about Romans, Paul talks about that in Romans. Like, why do I do the things that I ought not to? It's that fleshly side of us.
That's my struggle as well. I have that a lot too. And not just with like material and physical desires and things like that, but also just like, within myself, like I do things sometimes that I know aren't my actual higher self or like what I'm supposed to do. Or I'll like push other people's needs and stuff aside and I'll be selfish, and it's like it's a battle between almost like the shadow self a little bit, you know what I mean? And I deal with that all the time, man. And I'd like to think I'm on the winning side now, but still, just you win some, you lose some, But go on, man.
So continuing the story, he gives me a call 2 weeks before I go to Utah, I believe. And he's like, hey, man, I had this dream, and I believe it was from God. He tells me he had a dream about me living in Missouri for a season, which would just be a time frame. And I kind of rejected it a little bit, laughed, and was like, yeah, I'd love to live there.
Because he's living there at the time.
Yeah, and I thought maybe he just wanted me to be there. And I was struggling with stuff, so I wasn't really walking in faith very well then. And so I kind of shrugged it off, right? He's like, no, man, I really feel like this is from God. And this was 2016, so quite a while ago. And 2 weeks go by. I'm in Utah, and I'm struggling with these worldly desires and fleshly desires and temptations and all these things, and what's going on with my life and my relationship with who I was with at that time, and the family situation and moving, and all these things were building up, and I was to the point of breaking down in all aspects.
You're just being torn in 100 directions, man. Yeah.
And so I'm like, I need to get this off my mind. I'm going to run.
Mm-hmm.
Which was weird because I wasn't running at all. It was just like a thing to clear my mind. Like a, So anyways, I go in the little gym they had there at the hotel I was staying at, and I start running. And I'm running and running, and I can't stop thinking about Joel for some reason. It's almost like I have this image of Joel in my mind. Just him smiling, his goofy little smile, and him being so positive and everything about life. And what he's told me about this dream. And then, so I'm like, okay, I gotta stop thinking about this because it's conflicting me. You know what I mean? It's very convicting in a way.
Yeah.
And I look back on it now, and I believe I was being maybe convicted by the way I was living. And so I turn on the TV, and I'm thinking, I literally thought it was Home Improvement because I kind of glanced at it. People were in this house, and they're looking, it was a nice looking house, and
HGTV.
I was like, dang, that's a nice house.
Yeah.
But I look at it again because they started saying something, and I forgot to tell you this aspect too, which I'll add. It was God Television, which I never heard of before.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. I'm thinking about this stuff, spiritual things, and God, and Joel's dream. And then one thing I forgot to mention earlier is he was telling me about this church that he had went to in Redding, California.
Oh, like over the phone?
Yeah, it was under the name of Bethel.
Yeah.
I don't know if people have heard about that. I have my own opinion about that. Group church too. We can get that in another conversation. But anyways, he went there and he took some classes, and he's like, yeah, you got to listen to this music they have because they kind of reach out evangelistically with their music, which I think a lot of churches do nowadays, and possibly teach theologically through that as well, their understanding.
Sure.
And I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And it was actually Bethel on God Television, so I'm like, that's weird. You know,
yeah.
Joel just talked about Bethel. He just talked about moving to Missouri. I'm thinking about this, and I couldn't stop getting that image of Joel's smile and his face out of my head. And then so I'm running, and I look up, and they're in Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri, where Joel's from, and Joel Hedlund is on TV.
Yeah.
And I was just mind-boggled, like, whoa, what? Joel's here, and he's talking about God and having faith and all these things. And when that happened, something very physical and spiritual within me happened. And why I say physical is I believe it was the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Or God hitting me, and with his...
It's like a lightning bolt or something.
Yeah.
Something just like...
And what happened is like my hair was standing up, my skin had like chickenpox all over it, and I was like shaking. And when it happened, it was a very physical and a very spiritual experience, and I was just down, shaking. Not extremely violently, but I can't explain what happened. That's something that you can't really describe, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's something you experience. Yeah. And that experience changed me that day. And when that happened to me, I knew I was supposed to move to Missouri. I don't know all the ins and outs and understanding of that, but it happened, and I knew. And I was different from then on. And there for a while, I was just on fire, I tell you what. And then I come home, and there's those things of life again, and those temptations, and they pulled, and it's been a roller coaster, man. It's been up and down. I have had my times and stuff, and I've dealt with fear on moving to Missouri and all these things, but I do believe it's God. I know that for sure. Within me, I have faith, and I've been given more faith, and I have been not necessarily living the best life still, I struggle with these things, but I do believe in God, and I know that I am supposed to go to Missouri, so that's why I'm going, know? And I don't have fear about that anymore. I don't. It's taken over 3 years, which is crazy, but...
Well, now it seems like it's more of a getting your shit straight and finally pulling the trigger. Yeah, more than a lack of conviction,
Well, yeah, that was another thing, too. I was like, okay, can you look at this logically? I'm scared that I'm not going to get a job. I'm scared that I'm not going to make things financially. But what I realize is this is fear. You know what I mean? Like, I understand these things are good to have, you know, in the sense of looking at it from a
you got to have some sense, right? Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But in my opinion, I was using those as okay, I'm not ready. I'm scared.
Yeah. And, you know, I've used things like that in my life, too, there's a reason I do, you know what, dude, I'm a writer and stuff, and sometimes I even feel guilty calling myself a writer because I make excuses to not do it. And, you know, all the great writers and stuff, I always read about them, and, you know, they write every day. Like, no excuses. There is no excuse. And I see things like, if you wait for the perfect time and opportunity and place to write, then you'll never write. And it's like, you know, that's one of those things that I struggle with, too, of fear or just avoidance or whatever of like trying to it ends up being an excuse of doing what you want, and I think that applies
as long
to
as
like
you're doing it for yourself.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, you know, people are gonna enjoy this. It's a form of art and expression.
Oh, the podcast, you mean? Yeah.
Well, right, and just, you know, you're writing too, you know, like you gotta do it for yourself first, you know.
Yeah, and but still, I just like I don't want to let myself make excuses.
Right.
There's no reason why I can't write a paragraph every day. You know what I mean? And it's like we when we started this conversation, we fall into these traps, right? But I want to share a story with you, Connor, because it's, you know, almost it's a similar story to yours, but the outcome ended up being the opposite.
Yeah.
And you remember when I was growing up and stuff, I was a Christian, right? And also believed in...
You were searching as well.
Yeah. And I believed in other things, too. But, you know, I had, like, pictures of Jesus in my room that I cut out. You know, I don't know how or why I fell into that, but I did. You know, I think I had a traumatic childhood, and that image was comfortable for me. But I had this moment. So sometime back, several years ago, my dad... I was living with my dad, and, you know, he was involved in drugs and things, and our house was raided, right? And, you know, time passed, and we're dealing with that, and I went, and this is when I was a person of faith, right? And you know, we went to his court thing, and he got let off despite being like a multi-time felon, and the whole time leading up to that, I was like asking God or whatever, like, you know, don't do it, like, let this be good and stuff, and then they let him off with just, you know, halfway house and in probation or whatever, and I had a very powerful religious experience with that, like that my question prayer was answered, right? And I rode my bike home all the way with you know, tears in my eyes, and then when I finally got in my house, I like collapsed and was thanking God and all this, right? And then suddenly I had a moment where I like realized that I was talking to myself, right? And I had never had that before. And then after that, I just started to question.
Can I ask you something quick?
And it was one sec. It was a process after that of learning and reading different things, and like a slow disintegration of my faith, I guess you would call it. Okay. But yeah, what's up?
So I've been questioning these things and trying to...
And Matt, you can interject anytime too.
Research
so you know.
These things.
But he's just like in the conversation.
Theologically as well.
Yeah.
And there's these experiences. Would you say that was one of the most, maybe a pretty high point in a religious or spiritual experience with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So then let's say this. The Bible talks about God. Mm-hmm. The Bible talks about Lucifer. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. You have this experience, and you praise and give God grace for His mercy. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. For answering your prayer.
Yeah.
And right at that moment when you fall down and you have this intimate understanding and grateful for God, there's this thought that comes in your head.
Yeah.
Where do you think our thoughts come from? Do you think, this is an objective opinion in my opinion, maybe they're some of our own, maybe they come from external, internal sources, maybe they're spiritual sources. You know, and the scripture talks about that. So I think it's kind of not unusual, but I what I'm thinking, and this is just my subjective opinion, is why would Lucifer or Satan, why would he have not done that? put that in your head right at that moment.
Well,
so,
yeah, I totally understand what you're saying, but like, it wasn't. And like, look, maybe that's the case. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, Johnny and I talk about some wild shit on the show about fucking devil worshipping CEOs and wild ass shit, right? So fuck, maybe. I don't know.
I just wanted to add that because I've been thinking about a lot of that stuff too, and I have these thoughts that come in my mind, and the scripture talks about these things, you know, and I struggle with thoughts of accusations and me accusing myself that I'm not good enough, or why am I doing this because I've sinned or I've done this or that, or am I really saved and not. And scripture talks about like these don't come from God, you know what I mean? So that's just all I wanted to add on.
Yeah, and I understand what you're trying to say, but it wasn't like that for me. It wasn't like a voice in my head or anything. It was just like a realization that I was talking to the void, like that I was having a conversation with myself.
Yeah.
You know, and then I started to learn more about things, and I just became like more skeptical. And for a while there, I was a really like fire and brimstone atheist, I would call it. I thought religion was in any form, and you and I kind of not butt heads, but it kind of drove a wedge between you and I for a little while, you know.
But in the end, it brought us closer as well.
It did, and I'm glad we're able to sit and have conversations like this now, you know. But yeah, I became like almost a militant atheist, and you know, I'm sure Matt, you remember that time period, and I just like didn't want to hear anything about it. It was all bullshit. It was this and that. It was the source of mankind's woes, and we can make an argument that a lot of religious institution is.
Burned all the Bibles too.
Yeah. No, I didn't do that actually, but I did get rid of some, if I'm honest. Anyway, but yeah. So and then you know, I met my girlfriend Shannon that I'm with now, and she kind of opened my eyes to other possibilities and discussions, and I'm still, I don't know if I can call myself an atheist anymore, but I'm still very like, I don't believe in anything. You know what I mean? I don't believe that there isn't, and I don't believe that there is.
So that agnostic?
Yeah, I guess. But I'm open to it, and I'm open to hearing about experiences like yours, and I'm kind of like, well, that's spooky, you know, and I wanted to talk about it for that reason, and but you know, now I have no faith in spiritual things. Like I cannot, and my girlfriend Shannon's talked about this of like, I can't, with faith in God or whatever, right? That you talk about submission, right? Submitting, like letting go, not resisting, right? I mean, Muslim means one who submits, right? Like that's what that word means, and that's just an example. But it's the same with all religious or spiritual phenomena. You have to submit. You have to let it go, and you have to, you know, in order to have faith, you just have to let it go and let it come into you. And for whatever reason, the way that I am is like I cannot do that. I can't. Ever since that moment, I always question. I always have doubts on both ends. Like I'll, you know, entertain thoughts and stuff, but I just like can't relinquish. I can't submit for some reason. And it's not just like with religious faith in my life, but it's with a lot of things. You know, I don't know if, and this is getting personal. I know this is a little unusual for our show since we always do politics and stuff, but I have this other thing where I have a hard time living in moments of joy as well. You guys ever had anything like that?
Not as much as, because it can only get worse, right?
Yeah.
So you don't want to get too happy.
I think that's part of it.
For an extended period of time.
I just have it's like this, I have no problem like living in like sorrow or like depression or stuff. There's something like almost seductive about those feelings, right? I always say like sadness or anger and stuff feels good in a way. It's feeling something, right? Very powerful emotion, you know, and you can live in it. But I can live in those things, you know, like when I was going through my hard drinking times, that's what I was doing. I wasn't just getting drunk on alcohol, I was getting drunk on sorrow and depression and all these things, right? It was bringing me some sense of feeling. But the thing that I'm talking about is like I have a hard time living in moments of joy. So, be it with just having intimate moments like with my girlfriend or like with my daughter, it's very uncomfortable for me when I feel happy. I don't know if that's something you guys have ever experienced. I don't know.
I'm sure like throughout our lives,
Yeah.
we've all kind of experienced that.
It's like almost such an intense feeling that it's like,
You're like, do I deserve this?
that's part of it, but it's almost like I just can't handle it. Like when I feel really like happy or like just a flood of emotions about my daughter or my girlfriend or anything, I like push it away because
don't let it get too close.
It's just too much.
Yeah.
Like it's just too much because I am literally the type of person when I'm happy, I'll start like weeping. If I have like a real moment of like contentment and happiness, I'll like start crying with joy.
Do you think you're scared of something?
I don't know. It's just a lot to deal with. It feels too much.
Is not the opposite a lot to deal with as well?
What do you mean?
Sorrow and anger or whatever.
What I say is this. I know that, and this sounds really cheesy, but I know that love is more powerful than hate or anger or sadness because I have no problem living in hate or anger or sadness. I can live in those things despite them being very powerful emotions, but I have a hard time living in love and happiness. So you understand what I'm trying to say? So like to me, that's a sign or proof that emotion is the more powerful one in the human experience. It's because like I can't deal with it. It's too much for me, man. So I don't know. But
Bathroom, Connor.
I know. I was like, where is he?
Doing lines?
Yeah, right.
Excuse me.
Yeah, we'll wrap this up pretty soon, I guess.
Dude, it's beautiful out.
Dude, yeah, nice.
Makes me want to go kayaking. We should do that.
I wish I
That's
Yeah,
another thing I want to talk to
definitely
you guys
should.
about was the thing for Pat's birthday.
Yeah.
The details and stuff.
Yeah, we'll wrap this up here quick. Sorry guys if this podcast has been like a little like all over the place and different or whatever. I just wanted to give it a try and like also have a little practice with guests because I want to start having some other people on and I think it's a good place to practice just with friends and stuff and we talked a lot about like spirituality and like some of these inner struggles and stuff, but I don't know. What do you like?
Someone that like everyone can relate to.
Yeah, man.
Whatever stage you're in life, you can maybe take something from this or maybe add on to it. And
I don't know if anybody listening, maybe they got something from it and maybe a different perspective shift on stuff. And I don't know, but this being a political show, man, I don't know, I know you guys don't follow the news and shit as much as I do because, this is what I do for a living and stuff, but you guys are kind of like, quote unquote, I guess for lack of a better word, like civilians a little bit. I mean, like when you look at the news and you look at some of the things going on, like how do you guys feel about it? Like, what do you think about this quarantine?
More recently, I just don't like, we are in a weird time right now, but a lot of these problems are humanitarian problems, right? And not every problem is being shoved into this political spectrum.
Yeah.
Left and right. And it's like, no, we're all humans. Like, this is like a humanitarian problem. Like,
yeah.
It's all.
Like specifically with the quarantine and stuff?
Well, yeah, and just, it's all, every problem is just either Republican versus Democrat. And like, no, I can't, like, we're all humans.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been like that for a long time.
Yeah, it has.
I would have to agree with Matt as well. I mean, I think what's unfortunate is I think they take this thing that's it deals with humanity, you know what I mean? And we need to be more concerned about that than politics. And unfortunately, it gets mixed in politics. And I don't know much about that. That's not my expertise.
Yeah.
But I do feel like it is my personal responsibility to learn more about that. And I'd love to have more conversations about that and learn more about that as well.
I think a lot of times, because that's where change comes about, is like new legislation and new people in office, new ideals, and at the same time, it's almost it's inevitable that it becomes a political problem because that's where the change is actually coming. So it's like
it's tied in.
It's you have to recognize that this is everyone's problem. This is the planet we live in, and everyone's affected by it.
I think the only thing we can do is really just try to do the best for humanity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, there's different sides of it. Whichever side politically you are on, or whether you're in the middle, or whatever your belief is politically. Right now, there's gonna be implications that are not good, whether we open it or whether open the states or whether we keep everything closed. Economic implications. People are going to be without jobs. People who are on unemployment possibly might not want to go back to work. I don't know that. The highest, I think suicide is extremely high right now.
Yeah.
People with depression, anxiety are stuck at home dealing with these things, these mental illnesses.
They're literally alone.
People who have never had depression, anxiety are now.
Yeah. Domestic violence is all-time high. This is a bad thing since the Great Depression. Even, this is a bad thing on that side,
Yeah.
So should we keep it? Should we open things? Should we keep it shut? What do we do? I think that's a very, very, very hard conversation to have, and I think everybody's trying to do the best they can at those higher ends.
I don't know about that.
But the thing is I think that political aspect gets in there, and unfortunately, I don't know much about that, but maybe there's agendas, and maybe there's these things that are, okay, well, we need to look at this political agenda before we take concern about this. I don't know, but that's something you maybe could touch on more.
Dude, that's the thing is, Matt kind of touched on it, is dude, everything is politicized, and in a sense it always kind of has to be, because you have to just decide, what are we going to do, how are we going to solve this problem, particularly with the quarantine, but not just with that. This whole thing has brought, well, first off, the world paradigm is shifting, man. We're in a world now where it's, in a sense, East versus West. We have, it's the United States and Europe and the Western power and all those, that trading bloc, that group of, oligarchs or people that have vested interest in the system being the way that it is now, versus, this other block, some people call it the BRIC nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, that has fundamentally different interests than those of us in the West. And years of political divisiveness and inaction is weakening, the Western powers and neoliberal agenda. Things are reaching a point now where capitalist civilization in the West is starting to devour itself a little bit. The things that made it possible to be a booming economy and a world power, and not just talking about the United States, but other countries, freedom of speech, solid institutions, social programs, all these things, because of the concept of infinite growth in capitalism, it's starting to devour itself now. And the divisiveness is making it impossible, and some could obviously even say this is done purposely by those who kind of rule our society, that own the means of production, that run the government and stuff. It's making it's like we're shooting ourselves in our own foot, and our countries and our civilizations are beginning to rot away. Meanwhile, in the East, we're seeing the rise of more authoritarian regimes. Obviously China is booming. They have an authoritarian government. Russia is very authoritarian as well. Putin's been in power for how long? India is recently having a Hindu nationalist movement in their country, and they're gaining power, and their economy is beginning to boom. And you're seeing all these things, the West, the United States and these other countries that are supposed to represent democracy and rule of law and order and freedom and stuff, is they haven't adhered by those actual principles in a long time. It's been our interests economically and financially over those actual moral obligations or those tenets of our civilization, and it's ending up in a shitstorm, and we can't get our crap together. And meanwhile, while we're floundering and dropping the ball, these powers in the other parts of the world that are very authoritarian and don't even have a semblance of freedom of speech or assembly or human rights are beginning to become powerful. And we're entering a stage now where, America's no longer going to be the big daddy, because it's squandered its inheritance, and in the process even has turned its back on what it's supposed to stand for. And, these other countries are taking advantage of that.
Well,
And
what is your suggestion of fixing this then? Doing what they're doing for this
No.
country, or what?
no,
To a point?
not authoritarian. No, definitely not that. I don't know, but
We'll let our neighborhoods crumble and the weak get weaker and the middle class just diminishing, and let's just continue to grow our world police, man. Let's just
yeah,
as long as we got our military industrial complex, man, we'll be okay.
yeah.
Basically,
I
we'll
agree.
keep on bombing. We'll keep on doing what we have to do to keep.
Just keep the system running, dude. That's like what it is. And what were you gonna say, Connor?
I was gonna say I agree on some aspects, and like I said, I'm not very informed on a lot of political aspects of things. But I do think there's beautiful things in America, in the United States, that
Definitely,
are founded
man.
upon
Definitely.
and that we need to keep. And, I think one thing of that is the freedom of speech, the freedom of your own religious belief. You can start a business and actually grow as big as you want. You can make a life for you. You can do these things based off of how hard you work. But unfortunately, there is another side of it that I would agree upon. And like I said, I'm not informed about it as much, that you guys touch on, possibly people in power, compared to the middle class or the lower class or the higher end elites, so to speak. There's a lot of things, like there's no perfect remedy, I think, but I think America has a lot of beautiful and powerful things accessible for the people on how they can live and express themselves. I think that's one unique thing, and I think that's why America is a great place to live, so to speak.
And that's what's made it such a world power, like beyond just the economic
It's
sphere.
different.
It's
than all
our biggest
places.
export is culture, right? And we're seeing some of these things erode away for the sake of greed and power, and trying to play a rivalry or play a chess game with these other world powers. Meanwhile, it's my view, if we stayed the course of like taking care of our people, investing in things that are good for people in education and infrastructure,
Investing in the working class.
yeah, exactly. In the arts, like we would continue to grow in power, but it's like these people have like completely forgot about that, and forgot about the fact that that's what made America great. Is that people could come and they had freedom, and there's a dream, and it's like, and all that's being stripped away by them like shipping jobs overseas or shutting things down. They're censoring the internet more, and they're doing all these things. And I don't know what you guys think. I'm talking about this shifting paradigm in the polarity of power, right? East versus west to a degree is how some people sums up, and that's a very simple. There's more nuance to it than that, but it's not even just that, man. We're entering into a period where, as a species, not even just as a nation, and each nation of the earth has to answer this question themselves, is what matters? What course is humanity going to take? Is it going to continue to be the tribe versus the tribe, the me versus everybody else? Or are we going to reach a point and say, no, this isn't what the human experience is about? And obviously we always have to have economic concerns, financial concerns, blah, blah, blah. But it's really, we're living in a period now where we have to answer the question is, what is being human about? What is the purpose of the species?
I just feel like the West is not on board with what's good for humanity as far as like the U.S.
Yeah,
we just care about that money.
exactly.
Like, I'm sorry, Jeff Bezos, dude, trillionaire should not exist. Congratulations, you won capitalism.
Yeah.
Give benefits to your employees. Like, what the fuck?
It just seems like a simple thing.
Microcosm. Yeah.
It just seems like a simple thing of like, we should take care of our people,
I think there's nothing wrong with...
And it's just like a self-obsession with the self.
Yeah, well, I think there's nothing wrong with being able to make a name for yourself, make a business, to grow as far as you can grow. But
I agree.
I do think us as a people have that freedom of having your voice, and I think it's important to talk about these things of, hey, maybe not look at, hey, myself, I want more, I'm going to get, but I don't want to work as much or this or that, because there's different viewpoints on all sides.
Yeah.
Why do these people want more? Do they want to work? Like, what's their belief politically and all these things, I mean...
I believe it's an addiction.
But I'm just saying it goes from both sides, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just because Jeff Bezos is a trillionaire doesn't mean that he's a bad guy, you know?
I think he probably is.
But what I'm trying to say is, yes, I think it's good that we can do that and create a business and grow like that. I think that's what America is about also.
I see what you're saying.
But also, I think we do need to help these people that are more in need. You know what I mean? Especially the ones that are truly needing help. Not the ones who really want to just get things and live off of these.
Well, and this is what I'm saying. Like this is like it's a. We could talk about the political aspects and what needs to be done. Do we need revolutionary change to change the system so that this doesn't happen? But at the end of the day, it's a human condition problem. Because why is it that we're always going to have this struggle between wealth and power and those who want to cut everybody else down in order to have what they have? You know, Tupac put it as like, why do I have to sock a fella just to live large like Rockefeller? Well, and it's like, why is that we have? It's a humanity has a crisis of spirit, and you know we could even bring it back to like the spiritual path. If people like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or all these billionaires that sit on all this money and these corrupt politicians, if they were brought up in like a true spiritual way and not just in an institutional way, and you know like how the Native Americans did, like you know. They didn't allow people to be like overly self-obsessed, and you know they would do vision quests and send their people out to like kill their ego, sometimes with a psychedelic trip, sometimes just with being lost and mad in the wilderness. It's like we don't have anything like that in our culture that makes us self-reflect. We're just obsessed with consumerization and building a name for ourselves. And
one thing I can say too, and like I said, I'm not touched up on this political
we
thing.
Get it, you're an idiot, Connor. We get it.
I need to have more conversations with you guys.
Yeah.
But it's good to look at both sides. Who am I to say that Jeff Bezos is a bad guy or Elon Musk? I don't know. I just see the outer side. I don't know his life. I don't know who he is, what he does. Maybe he donates millions of dollars a year to things, and we don't talk about that, you know?
Yeah.
All I'm saying is there's nothing wrong with this exploration of trying to get help and changing things at all, but there's nothing wrong with having the ability to have a business either that creates that much. I mean, what if I sit here and I create an invention and then all of a sudden within 2 years I'm a trillionaire? Are you guys going to be mad at me because I don't give a piece of the...
I would be shocked. I'll be like...
What I'm trying to say, though, is we don't know these people, who they are, and we just know what's put out there.
You're 100% correct.
Okay, look, are they good to their family member? Okay, let me put it this way. You just talk about you built an invention, and in 2 years you're a trillionaire.
Yeah.
So you got $1 trillion. Okay, and you know, obviously some of it is an investment in your business, and like it's not like you can just liquidate all of it and give it all away. But you got now, Connor. You got 3 houses. You got a house in Malibu. You got 2 super yachts.
You have 3.
This is the point I'm getting at. Yeah. Okay, so you got all this shit. You got piles and piles of shit.
Who knows if he'd want it?
Okay, so this is your scenario, and this is your life we're talking about, right? So you have all this money, you have all these nice things. Okay. Meanwhile, you don't pay your workers a good wage. You don't give them health care. You work them long hours. You abuse them. You don't let them have a union. You don't give them time off. You're pretty much working them to death. Meanwhile, you have piles and piles of money. In your eyes, Connor, would you be a good person? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
I know what you're trying to say, and that's what I was saying is I think these are good conversations to have. I'm just trying to say is I don't think everybody that's a trillionaire is like that.
I don't think so either. There's good companies.
3 mansions and 5 yachts and 5 Lamborghinis. I think that's extremely excessive, and I think that these people do good things. They're just not talked about, even if they do have trillions of dollars. But yeah, let's talk about these things because it's up to us to bring these forth about how we're living, and we need help, and people need more and stuff. You know, I mean, I understand that. Better healthcare system, a higher paying wage, you know, all these things are good to talk about. I agree.
Right. I thought that I just had was, you know, the government and these corporations don't see profit in humanitarian.
They don't look at the cost of profit,
exactly.
And they just look at the profit.
If it's not making money, why do it?
Yeah, and that's a huge issue.
Humanity, nah.
Well, and that's
you know
the thing.
Like,
people say there's no incentive in a world like that, but it's like, meanwhile, if I become a doctor, it's not because I want a big paycheck. It's because I want to help my people.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, but I want to come back to that question just 1 second. You can give me a yes or no, Connor. If you're a multi-trillionaire and you have all this money because you're not paying proper wages, you're doing all this shit. You're just abusing. You're stealing the labor of your workers pretty much, and not even giving them a decent living. Meanwhile, you're living like God Himself, right?
Yeah.
In your eyes, yes or no? Do you think that makes you a good person?
I don't think anyone's good.
Okay, he's so good at getting around the question. You personally, would you, if you were doing all that and you had all this money and piles of shit, way more than you ever need, meanwhile, you have a million workers underneath you and none of them are living very good, and you had the power to make it so they live better and you didn't, in your view as a Christian,
is that immoral?
Do you think that makes you a good person? Or the best person you can be?
Like I said, I don't believe there's anyone that good. I think we're all wicked in a way. I know I'm saying around this, but let's just say this. Me personally, and I'm not saying...
He's just waiting until he gets that $1 billion.
On my belief,
okay.
And in the belief system of Christianity, if you believe those things, yes, you should help the unfortunate. You should help those who need help if you can. You know what I mean? You guys are mad that I'm...
No, like, I'm just breathing.
but what I'm saying is, I'm not trying to glorify myself, and I don't want any glory for the answers that I'm going to give. Yes, I would try to help these people. I think these people need to be heard.
I know you would do the right thing if you were like that.
It doesn't make me a good person. That's what I want to say.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
So, yes, I think people should help people if they're more fortunate. Absolutely, especially if you're a Christian. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But whether that makes you a good or bad person, I don't...
All right. But I think you and I will agree, if you got $1 trillion and it's because your workers have nothing so that you have it all, that's not the right thing to do. I think we could agree.
We need to talk about it, and we need to...
Damn you. You should be a politician, man. You're so good.
I think
You're so fucking good,
we need to talk about it like we are. But we need to help these people too, and who's to say that he's not, or these other people aren't?
Well, the thing is,
workers own the means of production.
Workers own the means of production. Anyway, no, but
I'm gonna say this right now. The business I work for, I'm very fortunate. Okay, they have a great setup for healthcare. They have a great setup for all these other insurances. Not all businesses do that, but if I'm correct, it's private through the business.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, not all businesses have that, and yes, there's businesses that do suck the money up and spread it up here rather than helping the people down here. That's wrong in my opinion.
All right, there we go.
But how are we going to fix this? Are we going to try to force them to do it? You know what I mean?
We need rifles and high explosives.
I don't agree with that. Okay, we don't need any militias. Okay, we can do a peaceful thing, Dylan.
You won't like my channel then.
No, I've thought about these things. That's another conversation.
Black Panthers are... Hopefully they're working.
Solidarity, brothers and sisters. But you know what, guys? I think this has been fun. I think we should cut it off. I know you gotta go, and Matt, you gotta leave pretty soon. So, anyway, guys, I hope you.
I have one last thing to say. For everyone watching, whatever, we're all humans. Let's just try to be kind to each other.
Yeah,
we're all going through shit. Some of it, whatever. We just gotta. Let's just try to be nice to each other. You know,
man.
That's all we can do.
I think we can all agree on that.
Love is cheap. We can just try to be kind to each other.
Yeah. And quit being a douchebag on the internet. Like, God, some people just try to get in fights on the internet. I don't understand it.
Yeah,
Talking to you, YouTube commenters.
It's just like throwing grenades over the walls. Just like boom.
I hope it gets somebody. Yeah.
I think we should have another conversation more in depth on maybe some of these topics another time.
We'll do a more political thing. Yeah, man. Yeah. That'll be fun. Anyway, guys, I know this is a really weird episode. I'm sorry I haven't uploaded this last week. There's been a lot of shit going on. Johnny and I originally planned on doing a show, and some things happened, and then he's had to work extra early today. So I'm glad I was able to do this for you guys. I know it's definitely not the regular show. But, honestly, I want to keep the channel more around the political lines and stuff because that's really what I'm passionate about. But I want to have more people on, like, just you guys, like, working class people talking about their lives and their experiences, political, non-political, and then also just musicians, artists, I just want to talk about anything and everything and throw those into the mix once in a while to give everybody a break from politics,
I think we all need a break. We all need a break from something.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, and just have a casual conversation just about, whatever's on your mind.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to talk about the exclusivity of Christ and the uniqueness of Christ, I'm down.
All right.
Ooh, yeah.
We can do that another time too.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll talk about that some more. But yeah, anytime we talk about Jesus, I do get a little uncomfortable. But yeah, man, I hope you guys liked the show. Sorry if it wasn't really your cup of tea. Let me know if you want more of this sort of thing and just all of us talking. And I'm sorry I look like shit, and I'm sorry there hasn't been more content this week. I'm going to do the best I can to get back into it. Again, guys, patreon.com/Entitled Millennials. We have that exclusive MK Ultra, the Bad Trip episode on there. It's almost 2 hours. You can access that for $3. Johnny and I already have 2 more concept ideas for exclusive content that we're going to try to get out by the middle of June. So there's going to be tons of good shit on there, and you can help us immensely just by $3 a month, and you'll have tons of access to new content. And once we hit like 40 subscribers, we're going to try to do a live Q&A with John Boy and I. Maybe I'll even have these fuckers on there too, just to hang out, drink beers and fuck around, drink coffee, whatever. So all right, guys, it was super cool hanging out with you. We'll do it again soon sometime. All right, cool, take it easy. Bye, guys.
Will line up, taking the divine to spend a little time at my grave. 'Cause if the stars are shining, I'm feeling some divine. I need to find my soul until it's